Hi guys, it's Miss Ruiz. I'm here to talk to you today about adding rational numbers. Remember to put your date on your paper. Now, this top section here, we've already gone over in class. We went over what is a rational number, and in your notebook, you should have some examples of what a rational number is. We know that it's a number that can be written as a ratio or a fraction, where your denominator isn't zero, and we talked about the different examples, how we can change integer, whether it's positive or negative, we can turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1. Fractions are already written as fractions, and terminating and repeating decimals will also be rational numbers. So today we're going to talk about how we add rational numbers, and remember we're going to have situations where our signs are the same and also where our signs are different. So let's start with the example that we have here. How do I add rational numbers? And we're talking about decimals. The example here we have 2 and 5/10 plus 1 and 5/10. And both of these are positive numbers. So we have to remember our rules that we learned for integers. The signs are the same. We're just going to add them and keep the sign. They're both positive. So I'll just have to add them. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind when we're adding and subtracting decimals, you need to make sure your decimal points are aligned. So I'm going to set it up this way. We do the addition, and that gives me a positive 4.0. And since both are positive, the answer will be positive. Also here, I have two decimals, and both of them are negative. So again, I'm going to just add them and keep the sign. Now, in class, we're going to go over these on a number line, but we also want to make sure we're checking and using the integer rules for positive and negative numbers. And so they're both negative. It's going to be a negative 8 and 9/10. All right, so that's decimals. Our signs are the same. Let's take a look at a couple of fractions here. Same situation. So I have down here this fraction 3/5 plus 1/5. Remember with fractions, your denominators need to be the same before you add or subtract. Okay, if your denominators are not the same, we'll have to find a common denominator. So in this case, my denominators are the same. Both fractions are positive. So 3/5 and 1/5, I'm just going to add them. 3 plus 1 is going to give me 4, and you keep 5 as your denominator. 4/5 would be the answer. And the next example here, we have two fractions that are negative. Same thing. We have the same denominator, so I don't need to make any changes. I'm just going to add them. The 1 plus 2 is going to give me a 3, and 8 is my denominator. And since both of the fractions are negative, also the answer will be negative. Okay, so that's a good example of when our signs are the same. And now let's take a look at fractions when our signs are different. We're going to go over these in depth in class, but I want to make sure that we're getting this in our notes. And we'll have more examples of different decimals and fractions in part 2 of 3.2 video notes. So I want to take a look at this problem here. We've got positive 3/4 plus a negative 1/2. So in this case, my signs are different. When my signs are different, I'm going to subtract and use the sign of the larger number. Okay. However, before I can do that, I need to have a common denominator. So I'm going to look, I have a 4 and a 2. I know that my common denominator can be a 4 if I just multiply this fraction times 2, and I'll write my new fractions down at the bottom. So this will remain 3/4. I will be adding a negative, and now my denominator is going to be 2 times 2, which is 4. My numerator will be 1 times 2, which is 2. Now I have common denominators. I can subtract and use the sign of the larger number, which in this case will be 3/4 because it's positive. So 3 minus 2 will give me a 1. My 4 will be my denominator. My answer will be positive, like the 3/4. Okay. So just remember when we're changing, we're looking to make common denominators, you're going to have to multiply both the numerator and the denominator in order to create a new fraction. Okay. Here's another example. I have negative 2/3 plus a negative 1/6. So why don't you pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, so negative 2/3 and a negative 1/6. My signs are the same. So all I would have to do is add them and keep the sign negative. However, I have uncommon denominators, so I need to change that. So I see a 3 and a 6, they have a 6 in common, so I'm going to change this fraction by multiplying it by 2. That will give me negative 4/6. I'll bring the rest of the problem down. I'm just adding the negative 1/6. Same denominator, they both are negative. I just add them and keep the sign. Okay, so what I would like for you to do now is I have 3 problems here, and I want you to do these 3 problems. They're all positive, so your answer is going to be positive. And for now, I would just like for you guys to find a common denominator for each one, and you're going to bring this to class. I will be looking for these 3 problems in your notebooks. I will see you next class.